There's one question that I get regularly, and that question is it worth it to buy just a few dollars worth of Bitcoin, maybe $50, $75, $100 worth of Bitcoin a month? And in this video, I want to answer that question. Let's get started. What we see here is a compound interest calculator. The link for this compound interest calculator is available in the description below. I created this myself. It might have some mistakes, it might have some issues. Let me know if you find one in the comments and I can fix it up. But what you can do is you can save this document to your computer, go download Microsoft Excel, and then you can use it on your own, however you want to. The file that you see, the link that you see in the description below, you won't be able to edit. What you can do is just download it and you can use it however you want to. So what we see here, the first column, keep in mind that you only want to change the things that are in yellow. You can use the drop-down menu for this one here for frequency, but you only want to change the things that are in yellow. The first column here we see is the year, 2025. You can change this to whatever you want to. Let's say you're watching this video in 2030. Go ahead and change it to 2030. The next one, annual expenses. This is based on your monthly expenses. So you have your monthly expenses here. You have your annual expenses here. You can change your monthly expenses, and it'll also change your annual expenses. So we go to $1,000 a month. Annual expenses are $12,000. And you might have noticed that in year 2026, your annual expenses went up from 12,000 to 12,240, and that's based on this number here. So let's say your annual expenses are actually going up by 4% per year. You can change that number here, and you'll see that reflected in this column. The next column here is column C, investment portfolio. You can change this first number here. It's in yellow. So you go to $10,000. You can put in whatever number you are at right now. But if you don't do that, you can also contribute to your portfolio. So your investments are based on however many dollars you put in every single month, every single year, every single day, every single week, whatever you want to do. Your investment is based on that. So you can change this. Let's say you go to $250 per month. You'll see this changing. You'll also see the frequency can change. If we go with $250 bi-weekly, so bi-weekly means every 2 weeks, you'll see that this number changes as well. You can go daily. You can see how much that number changes. $250 daily for 10 years will give you $11 million. You can also change the annual growth rate. So if you think Bitcoin is going to give a 20% return, you can change that here. If you think Bitcoin is going to give you a 100% return, you can also change that here. So however you want to do it, change this number. That's going to reflect on here, on your investment portfolio. The next column, this is your withdrawals. Your withdrawals are based on your withdrawal rate. You're going to withdraw a certain amount from your portfolio. Let's say you want to withdraw 5% of your portfolio. This column is going to show you exactly how much you can withdraw. So you have 5% of $166,437 is $8,321.85. The next column here is column E, the shortfall. The shortfall is just your annual expenses minus your withdrawals. You'll notice that if you lower this, let's say you go to 3%, you'll be able to withdraw a smaller amount of your portfolio, but over time, your portfolio is going to grow faster. That's not reflected on this because I don't know when you're going to start withdrawing from your portfolio, but your portfolio will grow faster if you don't withdraw money, if you withdraw less money, because you're not disrupting the compounding process for that money. And of course, in column F, you can see how much your portfolio is growing over time based on the difference between this and this, this and this. You can see that here, this and this. We can see that here. And the last thing that I want to show you here is the cost of living raise. So this is just the amount that, let's say, your employer gives you as a raise. Your business earns a little bit more and you're able to pay yourself more. Whatever your cost of living raise is, we are going to assume that you can increase your investment by that much each year. So proportionately, you'll be able to increase how much money you put into Bitcoin every single year by this amount. Now let's take a look at some numbers. Let's say you start off with $0, you start this year, you put $25 a month into Bitcoin. Bitcoin gives you a 20% growth rate. Your monthly expenses are $1,000. Of course, you can change these as you want to. Your monthly expenses are $1,000. Your cost of living increase. Your cost of living is growing by 4% per year. Your withdrawal rate is 5%. So whenever you're able to withdraw, you're going to start withdrawing 5%. And then your cost of living raise is 3%. So your income is increasing by 3%. So you're putting 3% more into Bitcoin every single year. So we can see here in 2045, just from $25 a month, you're going to have $147,000. That's 20 years from today. And now let's take a look at what happened to your portfolio. Column K, you can see you put in $6,000. You have 20 years of investing. You put your money into Bitcoin for 20 years. You put $25 a month into Bitcoin for 20 years. You can adjust this number to yellow. Bitcoin's price at the time, based on this 20% growth rate, will be $3.8 million. So in 2045, $3.8 million. And how much Bitcoin will you have? So this is just an estimate. I can't figure out how to get an exact number on this. Just because the numbers are going to fluctuate, Bitcoin's price is going to go up and come down. This is just an estimate. I would even round down by maybe 20%. Let's say you would have about 0.03 Bitcoin, about 3 million Satoshis. If you did the same thing with the stock market with a 10% return, you'd only have about $35,000. So if you put $25 into the stock market at a 10% annual growth rate monthly for 20 years, you'd have 35,000. If you put it into Bitcoin instead, you'd have $147,000. And keep in mind that over the next 20 years, I think that this return is extremely conservative. If we look at the total returns for Bitcoin so far, we can see here over the last 5 years, Bitcoin has returned 67% per year. In the last 10 years, it's returned 78% per year. So what if we went a little bit less conservative with this number here? I think Bitcoin can give you a 35% return over the next 20 years. If it goes to 30%, your $25 monthly investment of $6,000 over 20 years is going to be worth $712K. So if you were to save $25 per month for your kid over the next, let's say, 20 years, and you give that money to your kid, you're going to have $712K. I don't know what that purchasing power will be. Maybe that will buy half, maybe even a quarter. But again, you put in $6,000 and you're giving your kid something like 100K, 150K, 200K even, if the US dollar's purchasing power drops significantly. You could also buy 0.03 Bitcoin. Like I said, you want to round down a little bit. You could buy that amount today and you can just put it away and not even think about it. And now let's take a look at what happens if you were to put $50 a month into your portfolio. This number would double. You'd have way more money. Let's say you put $50 a month away for your kid. You'd have invested $12,000. You would have gotten $1.4 million back. And let's say that number drops by that 4% per month over the next 20 years. We can see that your cost of living would have more than doubled, a little bit more than doubled. So what you can do is you can just divide this number by something like 2.2 and you get about $600,000. $600,000 is what you're handing off to your kids by investing $50 a month. If you go with $100 a month, even more, $2.8 million. If you put $100 a month into Bitcoin for yourself, and this is your exact situation, $1,000 a month in expenses, you'd be able to retire by 2040. Your portfolio would be able to cover every single expense of yours every single month, and you'd still have an extra $6,000 if you were to withdraw 5% per month and if your cost of living increase is 4%. Now, keep in mind that all of these numbers are pretty speculative. We don't know what Bitcoin's annual return will be. We don't know what the cost of living increase will be, so we don't know what inflation will be. We have no idea what you'll be willing to withdraw at that point. Maybe you'll want to withdraw less, maybe you'll want to withdraw more. We don't know what your cost of living increase is going to be every single year. Maybe you won't be able to afford the $100 per month. These numbers are just to help you plan in case things go your way. Most things won't go your way. I've personally already accepted that. I don't think that they will. I think everything is going to be completely unexpected over the next few years. For all we know, Bitcoin could give us a 5% return. Maybe for the next few years, it consolidates and it gives you a much lower return than you expect. And then after that, after 10 years, it just skyrockets. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. These numbers are just based on history. If we go back to that 30% return, 4% cost of living increase, 5% withdrawal rate, you'll be able to retire by 2039. But let's say your expenses increase. Your expenses are $5,000 a month. Even with $5,000 a month, you'd be able to retire by 2045 if you put in $100 a month and Bitcoin gives you a 30% annual return. By the time you retire, your cost of living will have gone from $60,000 all the way up to $131,000, but your portfolio, based on your 5% withdrawal rate, will cover your entire expense. Now, if we go to a 3% withdrawal rate, you'll be able to retire in 2047. If you withdraw less money from your portfolio, of course, you're going to be able to retire later, but In retirement, your portfolio is going to be more secure. You're going to know for a fact that you're going to be able to withdraw this 3%. Your portfolio will have enough purchasing power over time. We probably won't see Bitcoin drop 80, 90% anymore. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if it will. I don't personally think it will. Nobody can really tell you for sure, but I don't think we're going to see that happen anymore. The lower your withdrawal rate is, I think the better off you'll be, the more secure you'll be, but you may not have to have a withdrawal rate this low. There was a study in the past called the Trinity study that was done based on the stock market and the bond market. The conclusion of the study was that you could withdraw 4% per year from your portfolio and you'd be able to retire for 30 years. You'd be able to be in retirement for 30 years. Your portfolio will very likely sustain your retirement based on historic numbers. But keep in mind that the return in that portfolio would have been much, much lower. We don't know what the withdrawal rate for Bitcoin will be. If Bitcoin gives you a 30% return, you might even be able to get away with a 10% withdrawal rate. Most people may think that this is extremely high. Others may think that this is too low, but you may want to just adjust as Bitcoin has its pullbacks and it starts ripping all of a sudden. So with $100 a month as your investment and $5,000 as your monthly expenses, you'd be able to retire in 2044. If we were to change this number to $500 per month with a 30% growth rate and $5,000 in monthly expenses, you see that you can retire by 2040. Again, with the exact same investment in the stock market, with a 4% withdrawal rate, you'd be able to retire in 2061. So the conclusion here should be that regardless of how much money you put into Bitcoin, eventually you'll be able to retire because your expenses probably won't grow as fast as your Bitcoin stack. Some people obviously have higher expenses and other people have lower expenses. So depending on what your expenses are, you may want to go higher or lower with your Bitcoin investment every single month. Because most people don't know what Bitcoin is and most people don't own Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin's returns are going to be much, much higher over the next few years, mainly because all of these people who don't own it already are going to want to own it. People are going to sell their legacy assets like stocks, real estate, bonds, gold in order to buy Bitcoin. They're also going to borrow as much money as they can to buy Bitcoin because that's just how markets work. Based on the fact that most people own legacy assets and they don't own Bitcoin, I think the best returns are ahead of us. So no matter how much Bitcoin you can buy, whether you can buy $1, $5, $10, $50 a month, keep buying, keep stacking over time, and you won't regret it.